Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States, looking around the globe for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And we're looking at also the people that are making a difference and how they're impacting the policies, the procedures, and the products that are being used as we move through the 21st century. Because as most of you know, we're moving from a planet populated by some 7 billion souls to almost 9 billion by 2050. So how are we going to be able to enhance actually the quality of life at the same time to accommodate all these new people that are joining us? And there are a number of people that are visiting with us week to week. And we have one outstanding woman from the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. She's a research associate in the Political Economy Research Institute. This is Jenna Allard, and she's coming in to us by Skype. And also sitting with me is Michael Krawitz, who is the CEO of Pear Energy. He's going to have a chance to talk about Pear in a little bit. But Jenna, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you so much, and welcome to you.
And glad to have you with us. And tell us a little bit about this Political Economy Research Institute that you're working with at the University of Massachusetts.
Well, the Institute was founded in 1998 to promote human and ecological well-being through original research. So practically, we're a group of economists. We work with other economists around the world and also with organizations as well as activist organizations to provide workable policy proposals on issues ranging from globalization, financial market instability, jobs and living wages, and also environmental justice and the green economy.
Well, we met at the Green Jobs, Good Jobs conference, and it's just really an outstanding collection of people are coming together, represent virtually every aspect of society. And so looking at the PERI there at Amherst, how did it become involved in this, and what are some of the policy issues specifically that you're looking at?
Well, right now most of our work is working on the green economy, and we're working on this from a macroeconomic standpoint. So we're really looking and interested in the job creation that the green economy can create for the U.S. So obviously for retrofitting and renewable energy, we know that there are environmental benefits, but there's also benefits to the economy as a whole, and ways to grow the American economy through investing in these types of jobs.
Well, looking at this chart, and we won't speak to this specifically, but it's very important the work that you are doing there and being able to share this information. And I know that you're sharing it with the Congress, the Office of the President of the United States,
yes,
and many of NGOs around the United States. What type of global impact is the work that you're doing having at this time?
Well, we focus mostly on policy in the U.S., and certainly where our economists are testifying before Congress, as well as going to numerous research groups in order to put forward our policy proposals. But obviously, our economists also travel internationally and are working especially in the area of renewable and sustainable development all around the world.
Well, I think it's really fantastic, and of course we're going from something where you're doing advanced research in publications domestically and internationally, but also you're working on very practical methodologies and technologies that can be used to create green jobs. So what type of very practical steps or practical procedures are you developing to enhance green jobs both here and maybe even be classic examples to be used abroad?
Well, essentially what we typically do is if a activist organization such as the Blue-Green Alliance, which is working for green jobs all over the U.S., or perhaps a labor union that wants to focus on green job creation, we will tailor our studies to focus on the economic effects of green jobs in their specific area. If there's a policy or a bill that is in Congress for a green jobs proposal, we'll provide the macroeconomic analysis that can estimate how many jobs this policy would create, and therefore give some support and talking points to people who want to pass this legislation.
Well, looking at the stimulus package, this was hotly debated, and we do not involve ourselves in politics in any way with the Emerald Planet, but there are a number of jobs that were created through the stimulus package, looking at the investment, long-term investment for energy efficiencies, energy conservation around the United States, and it was used as a model overseas. So what are some of the jobs and also the growth of the green economy in the United States from the stimulus package of the last 3 to 4 years?
Well, essentially, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act spent about $100 billion in the areas of the green economy. This is most of the money, as you can see, is spent in renewable energy, but also in energy efficiency areas. Most of this money was targeted to boost private investment. So only about a quarter of this money was actually direct public spending by the government. The rest of this money was in the form of grants, tax incentives, loan guarantees, and bonds. So this is basically to boost the private sector and to also incentivize building owners and even homeowners to retrofit their homes and businesses.
Looking at the stimulus package and the interaction between the federal government, private business, and then local and state governments, what was the impact at the local and state level that maybe is not so obvious to the citizens, but yet you believe through your research, Jenna, really did have a positive impact long term on both the economy and also to improve the quality of the environment?
Right. Some of this stimulus package money from the federal government actually went directly to state governments and local governments so that they could offer their own incentives. But state governments and local governments have generally been at the forefront of these sorts of incentives in the past. They will make their own policy called energy efficiency resource portfolio standard. So basically they'll require the utilities in their state to focus on reducing demand from their customers over time. And so this is probably, it's possible that wherever you may live, you see your utility suddenly advertising rebates for you to, change out your air conditioner, change out and get more energy efficient boilers, things like that. These sorts of incentives that are gone through the utility usually originate at the state and local level.
Well, we have Michael Krawitz sitting beside me, CEO of Pear Energy, who is a good colleague of yours. And I told him I was going to put him to work because he's here in case we lose you. But I wanted him to go ahead and ask a question about the investments in energy efficiency. So, Michael?
Okay, thanks, Sam. Jenna, maybe you could explain how investments in energy efficiency can actually help create jobs and what the correlation is between investments and the creation of good green jobs for Americans.
Sure. Well, there's basically two ways that this can create jobs. One of the ways is that, as you probably know, energy efficiency, in the end, it saves money. It reduces the impact that we have on the environment, and the products and the services that are installed to retrofit, to weatherize houses, end up saving consumers and business owners money. The problem is that they might cost a little bit up front in order to institute these technologies. So that's basically why everyone's not retrofitting their building, is because they can't figure out how to get that upfront money, the initial investment to then realize those savings. And that's where these rebates and these government incentives come in. Now, if you want to think about the amount of jobs created through a certain amount of spending. Essentially, at my research institute, we have an industrial survey of business activity, and then we study how employment would shift in response to an investment in a specific industry. How many jobs would basically be created? How much money would be spent hiring workers, and how much money would be spent on materials? Now, fossil fuels, they're bad for our environment, they're bad for our pocketbooks, and they're also bad for jobs because this industry is incredibly capital intensive. Not a lot of workers are hired. A lot of money is spent on drilling equipment and moving oil and natural gas. So a shift from fossil fuel spending, from oil and natural gas and coal, to energy efficiency and renewable spending actually increases the amount of jobs in the economy. On average, fossil fuels create about 5.3 jobs per $1 million of spending.
Well, I want to go back on something you said a little earlier
Sure.
in the dialogue with Michael about the building owners, and they're just trying to figure out the investment, the ROI, return on investment, and this balance between their initial investment and the return they have on that. What would you say to a building owner as far as the immediate benefits from, going back in and doing retrofitting for their lights, as example, and the HVAC air handling systems,
Yeah.
and some of these very natural top 3 or 4 things that building owners need to think about. And we're almost out of time, so I'm not sure we're going to get over all these. So let me just cut it short. How should a building owner look at their investment and the return on that? Make it quick.
Sure. Well, basically, although you're spending money every month on your utility bills, on your gas, on your oil, or on your electricity. And over time, if you make the investment now, just like putting your money away in a savings account, it's going to earn interest. So essentially, if you make that investment now in an energy efficient technology, it'll pay you back with interest in the years to come.
All right, Jenna, we're going to lose you right now because we're coming into the 2-minute break. But thank you for being with us, Jenna Allard, who is the Political Economy Research Institute Research Associate at the University of Massachusetts. Thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.
Some dreams are universal. Dreams that inspire us. Multiple sclerosis is a devastating disease that changes lives forever. The National MS Society does more for people with MS than any organization in the world. But we can't do it alone. To get involved, visit us online at nationalmssociety.org or call 1-800-FIGHT-MS. This is why we're here. Because nobody dreams of having multiple sclerosis.
What's wrong with this picture? Half of young Americans can't locate economic powers like Japan and India. 20% can't even find the Pacific Ocean. Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Geography is everywhere. It's incredible creatures, rhythm, fashion, flavor. It's economics and politics. It's change. Understanding connections between people and places is critical in the 21st century. That's why we created mywonderfulworld.org. Go there now for your free parent and teacher action kits and give our kids the power of global knowledge. Because kids who understand our world today can succeed in it tomorrow.
we're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference in the 21st century. And we're looking at the people that are making a difference as far as the policies are concerned and the impact they're having not only in the United States but also around the globe, because many of the ideas and the projects and research is being developed here is being shared to colleagues, institutions of higher learning, research institutes, and trying to bring about the very best exchange of ideas and flow of technologies as we try to accommodate 9 billion people that are going to be on the planet by 2050. And as we go through this drastic change as far as the climate is concerned, what are we going to be able to do to address all of these issues? We have someone that's really studying this on a day-to-day basis through the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. This is Jenna Allard. She is a research associate with the Political Economy Research Institute. And Jenna, that's a very sophisticated title you have with all that up there in Amherst. And welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you so much for having me.
I know you explained a little earlier about the PERI. Just give us another quick snapshot of what that is all about, how that relates within the University of Massachusetts. And then we're going to move very quickly into wind power and the impact it's having on the generation of renewable power and also the number of green jobs that is being created through wind.
Sure. Well, PERI is basically a research institute of economists that are trying to enact progressive policy and to present workable policy proposals on areas such as globalization, living wage jobs, and the green economy.
Now, looking at the notion of wind, we're going to bring this first slide up here because this is really one of the almost the untold benefits of what's going on in the economy, both in the United States and around the globe. People understand about solar, the mix from coal and oil over to natural gas, but wind is something that many people really don't know that much about. Tell us a little bit about your institute, why you became interested in the study of wind, and what's really happening in that particular industry for renewables.
Sure. Well, obviously our institute is interested in all sorts of renewables, but right now wind is just growing incredibly quickly, and it's really becoming a significant player in the electricity market. In 2010, 25% of all additions to generating capacity were wind. In 2009, it was 42%. So after natural gas, this is the fastest growing energy source in the U.S. in the coming years.
Now, looking at that, we know that there are many areas around the United States where wind really is a renewable natural resource. Mm-hmm. Are there any areas of the United States that have a greater propensity for producing renewable power through wind, or is it general throughout the entire country?
Oh, definitely. I mean, generally the Midwest and Texas are absolutely fantastic areas for wind, and obviously on the coast there is great potential for offshore wind, which we haven't quite cracked yet how to do that and how to get that permitted. It's only in the southeast where you really see not a whole lot of potential. And you can see this corresponds quite well with the policies that are in place to actually incentivize wind on the state level.
Well, we're looking at this map of the United States with the inserts for Hawaii and Alaska as far as the state renewable portfolio standards. What are renewable portfolio standards, and why would people, the general citizens in each of these states, really care about that?
Well, right now, this is the main way that states are incentivizing renewable energy, from wind to solar to biomass. And basically, it's the state regulator of utilities, the Public Utilities Commission, basically requiring utilities to purchase a certain amount of renewable energy. So it'll be a certain proportion of all the energy they sell. And I know that this map looks nice and neat with two colors, but every single policy at the state level is different and customized. It has different compliance penalties, different resource eligibility, and even different regulations for each specific technology. So they're very diverse in terms of incentivizing renewable energy.
Looking at this map, since we have this up for our domestic and the international audiences, are there any 3 or 4 states that really are very progressive in this area as far as wind is concerned? And what would be some of the policies that maybe other states that are looking at this, and even leaders in other countries that are looking at this map, that they may be able to incorporate in their own policies and procedures in their own home country, their own home state?
Well, a state that I think is doing an absolute fantastic job, not just incentivizing wind in general, but specifically incentivizing community-owned wind, is Minnesota. So Minnesota actually has the 4th most installed wind in the country. And basically it offers a special, not only a production incentive specifically for small wind producers in the state, but also a feed-in tariff, which is a policy that most European nations are using at this point to incentivize their really fast-growing industry that is specifically focused to help small wind owners recover most of the cost in the first 5 years.
Well, I have your colleague here, Michael Krawitz, CEO of Pear Energy, sitting beside me, and I know that he's been actually working with, which I was very surprised to learn about, Michael, with a high school program in Minnesota. And tell us how that a school system itself is getting into wind production, selling energy, and then how that actually relates to educating the next generation of green entrepreneurs and green workers for the new green economy. This is for Jenna. Jenna, this is for you.
Oh, okay.
I was just amazed that Michael is actually selling this. He's going to have a question for you in just a minute.
Okay, well, yes. I work to further the green economy in multiple ways. I have multiple hats. So I also work for the company that Michael heads, and we wanted to support small community-owned wind projects because we think that's where we could make the most impact. So basically, we've selected certain projects to support over across the country, and this Pipestone project is basically on top of an elementary school, and they really wanted to show their sustainability and also have it be an educational moment for students.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, and of course, some of these progressive policies in Minnesota are some of the reason why they can overcome those barriers of the initial cost and set up that turbine.
Well, I think that's very important to share, and that's why I wanted to bring up about even the public schools can get involved in this. And many people would think of maybe it's natural, Michael, for the universities to be involved, but to have the middle, high schools, and you're saying even elementary schools involved. This shows real leadership, I think, from the public educators at a local level. Now looking at the, how do you then take this research that you're working on with these organizations and then really push this out there so that people domestically and around the globe really know more about what's going on in these very local areas that many people, even their own local community, have no idea it's going on?
Right. Well, there's several ways that our institute supports this kind of knowledge. First of all, we're always producing working papers, and we do try and tailor them to be very readable and accessible on our website. Secondly, we're always focused on specifically advocating for legislation that we feel is important. So, for instance, right now, the states are in charge of creating renewable portfolio standards, and not all states have them. Now, a federal renewable portfolio standard has been proposed several times in Congress, and it has never passed. So every time we're hoping that it'll pass, and we offer evidence on the economic effects if it does pass. And then also, we're involved in private venture, some of the economists at my institute, to actually create green jobs by starting a business that fosters renewable energy and energy efficiency.
Well, I'm going to let Michael take this next question. This is about the policies at the state level. So, Michael?
Jenna, are there other things that states can do to encourage wind development besides the renewable portfolio standard?
Certainly. And some states are starting to, there's currently 6 states that now have a feed-in tariff of some sort. And that's a policy that actually originated in the U.S. in the 1970s and was adopted by Europe and so many other countries around the world and is used quite effectively to foster renewable energy generation there. So we're starting to see it coming back to the U.S., which is really exciting. And there's also obviously grants and other incentives that local and state governments can offer to offset this capital cost of putting up the turbine. Obviously, there's very few costs after you put up the turbine. You don't have to buy fuel. But that initial cost can deter a lot of people.
Well, look, and we'll put this next slide up here about the renewable energy certificate, but looking at this slide that we have here and then talking about the federal policies, I know you said that some things have stalled in Congress. Are there some positive things going on at the national level that could encourage people for renewables?
Well, I mean, definitely. There has been the basic way that the federal government has been incentivizing wind and other renewables has been through tax credits at the federal level. There's 3 types of tax credits that are all commercial tax credits. One is called the production tax credit, which basically offers...
You got to be quick. We only have about 20 seconds left.
All right. So one is called the production tax credit, which offsets money deductions based on the amount of energy you produce. The other is the investment tax credit. Both of those are expiring soon, and Congress isn't doing a lot to make sure that they're continued. So that's what needs to happen at the federal level right now.
Well, thank you for being with us, Jenna. You've done an absolutely excellent job in giving us an overview on what's going on as far as the state, local, and federal level. I'm glad that you and Michael had a chance to interact with each other. Thank you for sharing these slides that we had. And thank you for being with us. And thank you, dear viewer, for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about ring-top money. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water.
At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site.
That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff.
You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People! The flood is imminent!
Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President and Executive Director for Emerald Planet, headquartered in Washington, D.C., where we have our television production studio. And we're coming to you looking for those 1,000 best practices that are making a difference around the globe. And we also have a new program that's going to be growing out of this, where we can actually take that and make it available to you within local communities if you're abroad, and also within the United States. So we'll be providing more information about this in the future. But I have an outstanding young man who's with me, and he's been sharing about his organization. It's called Pair Energy, and I'm going to let him talk about what Pair actually stands for. Is Michael Krawitz, who is the CEO of this organization, and they work with institutions of higher learning, research institutes, and NGOs. Just about everybody on the planet, I think, Michael, that you're working with.
That would be nice.
And but go back to PAIR. What is PAIR in Pair Energy?
Sure. PAIR actually is an acronym for Poland Energy and Retrofits. Bob Poland is a world-recognized economist who studied the green economy and recognized that when we do what we would consider the right thing, there's actually a great return on investment. So he started this company to monetize that, to basically allow people to do the right thing and have this great return on investment.
Well, looking at the return on investment, let's bring up this first slide here about the various renewables, because I know you're very much involved in renewables and looking at solar and wind and many others. But looking at this mix, how have you seen the changes, say, over the last 5 or 6 years, Michael, as far as the work that you're doing in this mix of renewables, but also the general interest by the public saying, hey, maybe this is something we really need to be cognizant of and actually get involved in?
Well, I think that there's two components. One is certainly energy efficiency gets thrown into the mix too. And for a long time, people just didn't think about energy efficiency. Energy in this country is relatively inexpensive. But now budgets are tighter, and that's unfortunate, of course, because of the economy. But it hopefully will have a silver lining in that people will focus on energy efficiency. And when I say energy efficiency, I basically mean reducing the demand, using less energy and still getting the same level of comfort, the same level of energy, the same level of production.
Well, this is the whole thing, Michael, to talk about this. Many people talk about all the new technologies and products, people looking for the greatest whiz-bang that's coming down, you know, at the next moment. But really, if we just turned off the lights, we stopped driving the cars as much as we have, used public transport, all these very simple things that we can do day in and day out, just as a logical decision for ourselves, our families, and the community, we can make profound change.
Absolutely. And the nice thing is that we could also make profound change sometimes without sacrificing. I think a lot
That's a novel idea. Most people think that if I make a change, I've got to give up something, and it needs to hurt. Well, and many times it doesn't.
It goes back to, I think, if you remember back in the Carter days, the idea of turn up the thermostat or turn down the thermostat. And that wasn't received well. It was a great idea and had a good spirit behind it, but it wasn't received well. I think what we're finding in the last 5 years, the technology shift is allowing us to have the same amount of light, to have the same amount of comfort inside, and see a reduction in energy. And sometimes it's just phenomenal new technologies.
Yeah, well, it's just looking at lighting in our homes, lighting in commercial buildings, LED lighting, which is more expensive, but yet the savings sometimes can be, 50, 60, 70, 80%, depending on how old the old fittings are and the type of lighting that we're using. And people need to look at it as I'm making an investment. It's not something that's just a cost.
Absolutely.
How do you get that idea across, Michael?
It's tough. You have to start by having integrity. I think that there's so much confusion about, is LED the right way to go? Is compact fluorescent the right way to go? Is this, that? There's so much out there, which is great that there's a lot out there, but there's also a lot of confusion and a lot of people selling this or that. So what we try to do is we start with giving people unvarnished truth. Sometimes this will pay, sometimes it won't pay. And when you build that level of trust, then you can deliver concrete information and get people to act.
Well, looking at, I put this slide up here. This is the Verizon Center, which many people, even if they do not live in the Washington, D.C. region, will know about this because there's millions of visitors every year in Washington, D.C. But this is really a major project that Pear Energy was involved in. So give us a little bit of the long story about working with the Verizon Center, and how did you work with the top management to make them feel like they could be comfortable, and was there going to be a real payback as far as ROI is concerned?
They're absolutely, our team members worked on this project, and I think that the core thing was we put our money, we put the money where our mouth was, to use an expression. There was a guarantee. When we do a project, oftentimes we will guarantee the savings, because nothing says trust me like when money is at stake. And in the case of the Verizon Center, the payback was 3 years. It was a large investment that they made, but with a 3-year payback, it's a tremendous return on investment.
Well, looking at the savings per year, $280,000 per year in savings, that's a significant amount of money.
It's also a significant amount of carbon offset. The carbon that they didn't put into the environment.
Yeah, so it's the savings to the building owner, but also as far as the savings to the environment itself.
Absolutely.
Now, looking at this, how would you approach this? Give us a little the mojo of Pear Energy, of going in, looking at a building, because this is a massive building, and it's something that really has national standing. So how would you approach this? And then again, how do you walk people through this so there's comfort on the owners, comfort particularly for people actually using the building, and then going to comfort for you as far as being able to guarantee these the energy savings and the cost savings?
Yeah, I'd say it starts and ends with really, really good engineering. I mean, we have to get it right. That's what builds the credibility. That's what makes people comfortable, knowing that we're going to be very, very careful and study and get it right. And we're not just saying, hey, do this because you'll save money. These are precise numbers. This is science. This isn't hocus pocus, right?
Yeah, and this is one of the things, Michael, I think we need to get across to people, that what we are talking about, science. There's many people saying, well, is there really global warming? Is there really climate change? All these kinds of things. And what you're talking about is, and this goes back to this relationship with the University of Massachusetts, that you're really doing hard research and providing hard numbers for people to make actually good concrete decisions.
Yes. And then for the people that don't have the capital, because that's the other impediment. Sometimes people have these great intentions, right? And they buy in, they believe it, but they don't have the capital. So then we found that we just have to arrange the financing for them. And some certainly were willing to put money behind a project. But also, banks are starting to get with the program. They're starting to realize, hey, this is a good investment for a company, and they're starting to get with the program too.
Well, and also, too, going to this whole notion of green jobs and creating a whole new green economy, the banks, I believe, are finally getting it, is that if they're really going to grow and progress as we move through the 21st century, they have to be a team player now, not just wait till everything is fully established, and then they're all competing, for the same small market. Or what you're trying to do, I believe, through Pear Energy is to actually grow the market, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And energy efficiency and renewable energy, this could be our next big thing for not just this country, but for the whole world in terms of the economy.
Well, and as we add 2 billion more souls on the planet by 2050, we have to do a lot of figuring as far as where we're going to have jobs for all these people. But it's not just jobs, Michael. It really is a quality and a standard of living that we need to think about. How does Pear Energy address this as far as your day-to-day thinking with your board of advisors and with the employees, that you're really out there, you're giving value for investment in every aspect that they're faced with?
Well, like I said, it starts really with the engineering. It's getting it right, because when we think about buildings or a campus, we don't think about them as buildings. We think about the people that are in them. So it's air quality, for example. it's comfort, it's lighting, making it a comfortable environment to read and to work. So we start with the very, I guess, micro notion of these people are in a building and we want their lives to be comfortable. Then we work out from there and say, hey, how do we power this building? And how do we reduce the energy that this building needs? And the engineers work on that, and that's what we do. Well,
and looking at PAIR, looking at the various institutes that you have, Dr. Poland himself, I think this is really the core value you have, is that how do we provide this quality to the people, but really make the people as the core of everything that we're doing.
It is. It is absolutely the core of what we're doing, and it can be thought of in terms of the global people, the environment, and also just the economics for the people, and also the comfort for the people.
Well, you shared this very complex chart that we have here. It's been sitting right behind us now for about 2 minutes. Tell us a little bit about this, the importance of it. We only have about 2 minutes left, so we have to be quick.
Okay.
What does this mean?
Very quickly, this is a chart that we prepared for a client. And we gave the client choices of different measures, because we talk about energy efficiency as if it's one thing or another, but really there are choices. And what we tried to convey to this client was you can invest a little bit more and have a little bit longer return on investment, but you might have contribute less to the environmental damage by using even less energy. Specifically, LED bulbs use very little energy. Fluorescents might have a faster payback, but use a little bit more energy. So we give choices and let people decide. It's with information.
And it's really balanced. And we're going to exit out on this slide. Tell us a little bit about PAIR Energy and these local networks, and also producing energy really at the community-based level. And we have about 30 seconds left.
Okay, so there's two kinds of, very quickly, there's two kinds of renewable energy. The kind you have on your house or your building, and then the kind that's remote, that's generating for a wider area. And we work with both, depending on the application that's best for the campus or the building.
Yeah. Well, looking at all this, I think it's really exciting what you're doing as far as PAIR Energy is concerned, Michael Krawitz. And the fact that you're working with the research institutes, working with universities is very, very exciting. And I think what you have to offer, it just goes beyond what we can imagine. And thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Too many women get hit by their boyfriends and husbands. Too many women are pressured into having unprotected sex. Half of the people in the world living with AIDS are women. It doesn't have to be this way. Together, we can change this reality. Let's strive for a world free of violence.
At Volunteers of America, we don't just give kids a way to stay off the streets. We give them the tools they need to reach their full potential. We don't just help the elderly receive needed care. We help them live life to the fullest. We don't just provide food for homeless individuals and families. We provide job training and placement so they can buy groceries. Volunteers of America is a national organization that for over 100 years has provided programs and services that allow people to overcome their challenges to become vital members of their community. At Volunteers of America, we don't just help people, we help people help themselves. Find out how you can support the programs that are working in your community. Contact Volunteers of America today. Call 1-800-899-0089.
Drivers face all kinds of distractions.
Guys, stop playing. No. 127 consecutive.
Before your wireless phone becomes one of them, stop. Drive safely. Keep your phone in easy reach and dial sensibly. In bad weather or traffic, call later and use a hands-free device. Remember, with wireless, safety is your call.
to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Thank you for being with us as we bring you the Emerald Planet from Washington, D.C. in the United States, as we're looking around the globe for the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference. And we're also talking with the people that are actually developing all of these to make a difference as we move through the 21st century to realize an ever-increasing quality of life for all the citizens that are being added, populations in the various continents. And at the same time is how we're going to provide them with the comforts, with the health care, the education, the electrical energy, the water, the sanitation, all of these things that bring about an ever-increasing quality of life. There are many people saying that we actually have just too many people on the planet, and the question is, well, what are you going to do with all these people? The other side of that is there are many that are actually researching, developing, studying, bringing about policies that says, well, we're going to have the 9 billion souls as it looks like by 2050, and we have to do something now to prepare for these people to make sure that we actually do bring about the policies, the procedures, and the products that are going to bring a quality of life that we would all expect as we move into the 21st century. And we have a gentleman who's doing a lot of thoughts about this, but from the standpoint of very practical applications for energy efficiency, energy conservation. It's Dr. Benjamin S. Weil, who is the Extension Assistant Professor for Building Energy at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And Ben, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you here. I've heard very excellent things about you from Michael Krawitz, who's sitting right beside me, CEO of Pear Energy. And he's here in case we lose you. Michael and I are going to pick up just like that you're supposed to go off and have a cup of coffee while we're doing our television program. But welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
Looking at the Building Energy program there at the University of Massachusetts, tell us a little bit, Ben, about that, what it means, and when did it start?
So, in its current form, it's very new, and it kind of consists of me from the extension point of view. So, universities have traditionally, large universities have tried to extend and do outreach, and that is a big part of what I'm doing. I operate within the Department of Environmental Conservation, which has a program in building and construction technology, which has got a very long history working with people like Paul Fizette and Simi Hawk of doing really important advances in energy technology for buildings.
Well, Ben, you're really on the leading edge of what's going on here in the United States and abroad, because energy conservation is a very old notion, something that people have been doing since the beginning of humankind, but yet it's almost like we're taking that and doing the research and development, turning it really into a science so people can understand, yes, we do want to turn the lights out when we leave the room, but what is the real science and the use of technology behind it? This is something that you actually are doing through your Building Energy program.
Right. So I guess what I'd like to do is kind of back up, and this is a perfect slide for it, because it shows that the point is that people are in the buildings, and you can't affect behavior without thinking about the whole building system. And the building system includes the environment, which is, how hot is it or cold is it outside, and the internal environment, how comfortable is it, what are the humidity and moisture and air and heat and those things that are moving around, and then how does that interact through the mechanical systems that provide that comfort or are designed to provide that comfort. And of course, the comfort is the people. So the first thing is to think about the whole system, because a lot of the things that say Pear is installing, all these wonderful technologies, they'll work, but they'll work much, much better, or maybe only really work well when you have the occupants interacting with them in the way that they were intended. And so often we'll build complex energy models of buildings. And these are essentially to predict what will happen if I do these tweaks. So those menu of choices that Michael showed you that Pear will offer its customers, we could do this measure, that measure, and the other measures. The way they come up with what the actual savings will be in the end is done with an energy model. Energy models have been up to 100% wrong. We're talking good energy models.
Well, looking at that, Ben, as far as the energy models, it really goes back to the human beings that are part of this complex mix, and that's something that many technocrats overlook. If we make this better system, or if we have a better monitor, or if we can have a more efficient air handling system, but if the human beings really don't understand it, they don't buy into the system itself, it really doesn't matter what we're trying to do technologically, but we have to really have the human behavior as part of the overall program.
Right. So there are three kind of modes of human behavior that are relevant for energy conservation. One is the human behavior that says, I want to purchase this, the thing that's going to motivate a customer to go to Pear and say, I want to do something about it. The second one is, once they've done some things, is what are the behaviors that they actually engage in? And so they have to know what to do, right? They have to have information, and they have to do it. And then the final one is to build it as a habit, because if you just do it and then you fall off the wagon like a diet, you gain your energy pounds back. So the next part is actually changing the culture. So if it's a corporation, it would be the corporate culture, but it can be in a town. It can be the civic culture. But a sense of what we do. So recycling is a good example of something that when I was growing up, people were learning how to do it. And now most of the people I know do it by habit. And so that's been a savings in terms of, in this case, waste stream that's actually worked out. So this graph that you have up is an example from a building where I monitored the temperature over a weekend. And then the low line, the low orange line, is light penetration. So you can see that all these offices are on the east side of the building, and sure enough, light comes in the east in the morning. Now this is in March, so it's still in the heating period, so it's relatively cool. But there's vast difference in the temperatures that these buildings are experiencing, or these offices are experiencing, right? So the red line, the office that's represented by the red line, has its thermostat. You see the wiggles? Those wiggles indicate that the thermostat has kicked on, and it's trying to keep the temperature up, in the mid-70s in Fahrenheit. And then if you look at the purple line, well, it's also up pretty high. That thermostat has somehow been set way too high. Now the blue line is pretty interesting because it's about where you'd expect it to be, and then it gets cold on Saturday. So what happened? Well, and then the green line, just so you understand, is what the building wants it to do. The building systems operator, let's say a system that Pear installs, the operator would actually want it to follow the temperature pattern of that green line. So you're getting savings by not having the temperature set too high. It's just like the Jimmy Carter thing, turn down the thermostat, except we do it at night or the weekend when no one's there. But what happens? So you've got three different things. You have thermostats that are getting slammed all the way up because people are cold and they don't understand. So here's the understanding part. They don't understand that a thermostat is a switch, not a valve. So you set it to the temperature you want, and then you have to wait a little while for it to get there. But the blue one is the case where a window was left open, and as it got colder outside, the window finally left off. Now, why did the window open? Because that office was too hot. So this was a case where the building's not providing him comfort, and so he took matters into his own hand and he opened his window. But then he left on Friday, and the window stayed open, and now the building has this giant air leakage. So that's an example of how you can see these changes. So here's another example.
Well, Ben, let me head you off the pass here for just a minute. Looking at the diagram and the research that you just shared with us, how can we motivate the individuals and groups to actually buy into the fact is that we want to keep a constant temperature, that we want to have the best aspects of the systems that have been engineered and paid for, either through the local government or the school system or the university, and at the same time allow people to have the comfort that they really want. How do you balance all of that?
The key is providing them the comfort. The key is providing building systems that really work. So all of these thermostat problems or window problems we just saw are examples of building systems that are not good. And so you can't get the optimal behavior because you didn't have someone like Pear or one of these energy services companies installing a well-controlled system. So you do have to provide them comfort. But the other thing that you can do is if you help people understand how to deal with their comfort in lots of different ways, and you change the corporate culture to allow them to say not wear a jacket when it's too hot, or allow them to to change their clothing, open windows when it's necessary. All those things that we find in American culture in particular, we're really reticent to go be the one who opens the window or be the one who turns the thermostat down. There's this sense of, or turns off the lights. There's this sense of not being allowed to. So it's up to, say, a sustainability officer from a corporation or whoever is kind of operating this thing to be proactive and help people understand that that they're changing the culture and that it's part of who they are. People want to be part of a herd. They want to actually fit in.
Ben, we're going to do, we're down to about a little over a minute. What other major universities like the University of Massachusetts are involved in such research and publishing to share these ideas and to allow the public to better understand how their homes and the public buildings they operate in can respond to them?
Okay, well, there's a lot of work being done in this area. So, University of California at Berkeley, and they actually share a lot of researchers with the Berkeley Labs. So that's a national lab. They've been doing work in energy conservation for a very, very long time. UMass has been doing work that I've been doing, but also with computer scientists developing better systems.
Ben, we're going to lose you. We're at the end of our time. Ben S. Weld, who is the Extension Assistant Professor of Building Energy, University of Massachusetts Amherst. And thank you for being with us on the Emerald Planet. And Michael, we're going to sit here and just chat.